An intersubjectivist perspective. Mind enmeshed in an intersubjective context. Being arises, Martin Buber said, in the between. Psychoanalysts Robert Stollerow and George Atwood explain it this way. Our inner experience is embedded in an intersubjective system of mutual influence with others. The idea of the isolated mind, they say, is a myth. The myth of the isolated mind ascribes to man a mode of being in which the individual exists separately from the world of physical nature and from engagement with others. Stollerow and Atwood contend our minds are not isolated entities, separate from the minds of others. Rather, as Buber talked of I thou and I it, intersubjectivist psychoanalysts talk about the self in relation, that our subjectivity becomes real only in relationship. It starts in our early life as we interact with our mother, influencing her, being influenced by her. Our personalities take shape as we arrive at invariant principles. We arrive at these principles as we try to make sense of all we perceive, to organize it. To experience, Donna Orange tells us, is to organize the given. Our organizing principles, the way we structure our experience, determines how we see ourselves and others. When you and I meet, how we respond to each other is determined by these unconscious ordering principles derived from our past experiences with important caregivers. Thus, our history, Donna Orange said, resides in our whole being. What we do, how we act, reflects our organization of experience, the meaning events or situations have for us based on previous relational experience. When we change, the intersubjectivists say, it's because we formed new organizing principles, new expectations of the way things will be, derived through new experiences with others. It's only with great effort, the intersubjectivists maintain, that we can become conscious of the organizing principles that make up what they call the pre-reflective unconscious. We might try to discern how we structure experience by asking ourselves what meaning that which is confronting us has for us. What does it remind us of? When we look for meanings and recurring themes in our experiences, in our lives, we get in touch with the pre-reflective unconscious. We discover our way of experiencing self and other is only one way, one perspective among many other alternative ways. A person enters any situation, says Stollerow and Atwood, with an established set of ordering principles, the subject's contribution to the intersubjective system. But it is the context which determines which among the array of these principles will be called on to organize the experience. Hence, we wouldn't experience things in a particular way if the context didn't lend itself to being organized in that way. So how we organize our experience depends on two things: the organizing principles that we assimilate our experience into with their developmentally preformed themes and meanings, and the context that favors one or another of them over the others, Robert Stollerow and George Atwood said. The intersubjectivists put great stress on the importance of the validation of others. What we allow to become conscious, they say, is the result of the intersubjective context we function in. When articulating an experience jeopardizes a vital tie, Stollerow and Atwood says, we do not encode it in symbols. What is unconscious in us, they maintain, is what is unsymbolized. We surrender to unconsciousness the parts of our experiential world that it is too dangerous for us to articulate. Thus, our knowledge of self and others, our memories based on experiences, may be repressed or dissociated because they threaten ties with caregivers or cause us conflict or threaten us with fragmentation of self. The parts of our being we thus cannot express is called by the intersubjectivists our dynamic unconscious. It's the validation of others, Donna Orange said, that helps us to trust our experience. Without a validating response, parts of our experience will stay unconscious, will never become articulated. Atwood and Stollerow call this the unvalidated unconscious. The unvalidated unconscious, they say, consists of experiences or emotions that were never validated. Only with attunement to our inner experience, intersubjectivity theory holds, can we become more conscious of who we are. Without confirmation and a validating responsiveness from our environment, the theory stipulates, we don't form a stable and coherent sense of self. Our affect states, intersubjectivity theorists believe, are often only vaguely felt and must be recognized and articulated. Our early affective experiences, they explain, are felt as physical sensations rather than articulated as feelings. We need someone there in our early life, the intersubjectivists say, who responds to our emotional states and needs, someone who can help us to identify what we feel and help us to put it into words. We need the presence of an empathically attuned other who can help us to crystallize what we feel. Without that attuned responsiveness, intersubjectivity theorists say, affects may be expressed in bodily states rather than expressed in feelings. Without those validating responses from those around us, Stollerow and Atwood say, we find ways to concretize our emotional experiences, ways to give them a sense of reality they wouldn't have otherwise. Sensual experiences, fantasies, dreams, and daydreams, for instance, are some of the ways we have of organizing our affective life. We might use perceptual imagery, the intersubjectivists say, or behavioral enactments to sustain organizations of experience that can't be sustained in other ways. They explain how the person labeled psychotic, for instance, concretizes his perceptual reality in order to maintain it. His delusions are his attempt to make real perceptions that he can express in no other way. Only with the validating response of others, with attention focused on the unvalidated unconscious in analysis, intersubjectivity theorists believe, can we begin to address what was previously expressed in bodily symptoms, or daydreams, or fantasies, or delusions. Only with a validating intersubjective context can we put into words perceptions that left us feeling disorganized or confused because we could not own them. It's our early caregivers who first teach us what is acceptable or unacceptable in us by their response to us. When we look at our expectations and fears in relating to others, at the things we dare not say because it is not safe, we discover parts of our experience we couldn't own or we have to hide. Affect states that weren't met with attuned responsiveness and thus can't be integrated can cause us lifelong conflict because of the threats they pose to our psychological organization, the intersubjectivists say. We give up parts of ourselves or don't let parts of ourselves come into being, living instead by the perceptions and judgments and feelings and needs of early caregivers whose voice we have introjected. Throughout our lives, our intersubjective or relational experiences play a pivotal role in the evolution of our being. For as Martin Buber said first, being arises in the between.